So Gamebred Boxing 4, Jones Jr. versus Anthony Pettis is going to be a crazy card. I'm going to be live streaming during the card. I'll also be live streaming during the PFL and Bellator as well this weekend. I believe this event actually takes place at the same time as PFL. So I'll be live streaming during PFL and this, and I'll be talking about the fights. We'll be watching the fights simultaneously. It should be a very good time. It's going to be an interesting card. Like, I'm very interested in how this card is going to turn out. The prelims aren't that great, like all of these fights aren't that great, but I will talk about them just as a quick preview and pick. Really quickly though, Devontae Stewart, experienced MMA fighter, 10-8, taking on Kate Howell, who's 3-1 as a pro boxer. He's 24 years old. I'm going to be picking him to win. Now we move on, Marcus Perez taking on Joe Riggs. Probably the most exciting fight this low on the card. It'll probably be moved up a bit, but short notice fight for both guys. I believe it was actually meant to be originally Paul Davey versus Anthony Taylor. And then it was going to be Paul Daly versus Marcus Perez, and then Paul Daly couldn't make it, so now it is Marcus Perez versus Joe Riggs. Joe Riggs, very experienced in MMA. Marcus Perez, former UFC fighter, but Joe Riggs has recently been doing a lot of bare-knuckle boxing stuff, so I'm picking him in this matchup here. It should be an interesting one. Not too sure for sure who's going to win, but it's going to be a fun fight. Joe Riggs is always going to show up to bang. He's been doing bare-knuckle boxing for about like 5 years now, I think, so I've got him just for having more like boxing experience. Marcus Perez is more of a grappler when it comes to his MMA style, so I kind of like that out of Joe Riggs. Next one is B Nguyen taking on Andy Nguyen. I've got B Nguyen. She fought at 1 FC. Both girls do have a losing record in MMA, but B Nguyen fought in Muay Thai, and she fought in 1 FC. Andy Nguyen fought in Bellator and Ryzen as well, but B is only 33 years old, whereas Andy is almost 41. And as I said, B's got that Muay Thai experience. She's got that one. It's only one fight, but it's a Muay Thai fight at 1, which does mean something. So I'm going to pick her to win. It is worth noting, though, she's actually going to be a lot smaller. She's only 4'11", and Andy Nguyen is 5'4" with 64-inch reach versus only 56-inch reach for B. But I think she gets it done. I'm assuming she's the one most people are picking to win. We move on to Danielle Cohen versus Danielle Wynn. I genuinely have no idea, like, whatsoever, honestly. Danielle Wynn's got way more experience. She's got 1-5 MMA record. She's fought in boxing a couple of times, fought against Pearl Gonzalez and Monica Medina, but I don't know. Like, honestly, it's just kind of a weird one, isn't it? I think Danielle Cohen is the favourite by most people, so I'm just going to go with that, but there really isn't much like information on either of these two whatsoever. The next one is Roberto Armas taking on Javier Zamaron. Sorry, I believe I spelled his name completely wrong, but I'm picking Zamaron to win this matchup here. He's got boxing experience. He's got first-round KOs in boxing as well. He seems like he could be a guy that could get the KO in the matchup, could be a guy that could maybe have like one of those really pretty boxing records. He's fighting an older guy, Roberto Armas. There's like no information on this guy like whatsoever. He's got a 1-1 amateur MMA record, and that was in 2021. He hasn't fought since then. He's never boxed to my knowledge, whereas Zamaron is actually a professional boxer. I think he should be able to get it done by knockout as well. I mean, he's knocked out his previous 2 opponents in the first round, so the next one is actually a very high-level boxing fight, to my understanding anyway. It is a 16-0 fighter taking on Clarence Booth, who's 21-7. Kind of seems like a fight that's going to be a step up in competition for Luis Feliciano, who is 16-0, kind of really getting his career going now that he's 30 years old. And Clarence Booth is on a 3-fight losing streak. Not to anyone that I recognise, but man, there's three fights back-to-back in like a very short amount of time. But I've got Feliciano here. I'm not a boxing expert. I don't really know who he is, but he's 16-0, and it's just kind of how the boxing landscape works. Speaking of how the boxing landscape works, we've got a 12-0 guy taking on an 18-11 guy who's 43 years old. Kind of another one of those fights where the 12-0 guy is expected to win, and I think he will win. So I'm going with Kashin in the matchup. We move on to now some interesting fights. Dylan Chikla actually had a very successful MMA career. He went 11-1. And I think that he should win this one here. He went 11-1 in MMA with 10 KOs, 1 submission, and he's been looking pretty decent in bare-knuckle boxing. Recently did lose, but he won a lot of fights in bare-knuckle boxing. Didn't really fight the best guys in MMA, to be fair. But he should be able to beat Josh Burns, who had a negative MMA record, but also isn't finding the same level of success in bare-knuckle boxing. But to be fair, Josh Burns has way more experience in bare-knuckle boxing than Dylan Checkler does. But this is pure boxing. I've got Checkler. He's the younger guy, like slightly. He's got BKFC experience himself. I think he should be able to get it done. This is going to be fun, though. This is going to be a fun fight. Should be very interesting. I look forward to it. Pearl Gonzalez taking on Gina Mazzani. I think this is Gina Mazzani's boxing debut. Pearl Gonzalez has been doing boxing for a while. She's been doing the bare-knuckle boxing as well. I think she should be able to win. I think she's 2-0 as a pro boxer. Gina Mazzani's making her debut. I think Pearl Gonzalez gets it done in this one here just by a decision, just by having more boxing experience. Mazzani's a pretty good boxer, but I think that Gonzalez should get it done. Now we move on to the fights that everyone's excited about. I'm hyped for this fight, man. And I am picking, and I have, just for the fun of it, actually got $5 on Vitor Belfort to beat Jacare Souza in the matchup. It's just for fun, dude, and I think it's going to be fun on the stream when I get to watch it. Hopefully I get to cash, I don't know. But, yeah, Vitor Belfort, dude, he just beat our good friend, what am I talking about? Evander Holyfield in the first round in a fight that was just hard to watch, man. I think he's going to beat Jacare Souza as well. Like, Jacare Souza, for the most part, was a grappler in MMA, and we've got TRT Vitor Belfort, you know what I mean, out here throwing bombs, probably on the TRT again. Honestly, dude, I think Vitor Belfort does beat Jacare Souza in a boxing match. He seems to be taking his boxing very seriously as well. He's been training for it for a while. He's had a lot of cancelled fights that just didn't like work out. I mean, he was even meant to fight Oscar De La Hoya at some point. Like, dude, there were a lot of fights that this guy was meant to fight in boxing, just never really worked out. I think he's been more committed to boxing than Jacare. Jacare probably just got offered the fight, got offered the money, and was like, yeah, I'll be keen on this. That, like, I don't know if Jacare's been really like focusing on boxing for years like Vitor Belfort has. So I'm trusting Belfort. Is 46 years old. I think he's actually going to beat Jacare. I don't know if he gets a KO. I know he did KO Evander Holyfield in the first round, but that was just like an old Evander Holyfield, like 59-year-old Evander Holyfield. And we've got odds here as well. Vitor Belfort's like a minus 500 favorite or wider, which is why I put $5 on him to win $1. But I think he should get it done. If odds drop for him to get a KO and it ends up being like plus money, I might put like another like $1 or $2 like live on stream on that for fun. But we move on to the next one, which is going to be a very interesting fight. It's going to be Jose Aldo taking on Jeremy Stephens in like a rematch, because they did fight actually in MMA. And now they're rematching, which is going to be interesting. So old mate Jose Aldo took on Jeremy Stephens back in the day. I don't think it was that long ago. Yeah, in 2018. And now they're rematching in boxing after Jose Aldo did just recently make his boxing debut against not the best boxer in the world, Emmanuel Zambrano. He did look very good in that fight. That is Jose Aldo. He looked very technical as a boxer. He did look a little bit reserved, but he looked like he was getting his groove on. He looked like he knew what he was doing, you know what I mean? I thought he looked pretty good in the fight. Did he look amazing, though? Not really. And honestly, Jeremy Stephens, I don't know. Like, Jeremy Stephens is the odds aren't that wide. So you've got Jose Aldo is like a minus 300 favorite. Jeremy Stephens about plus 210 thereabouts. And I kind of understand that. I've got Jose Aldo though in the fight because I've seen him box before. I haven't seen Jeremy Stephens box in like a pure boxing fight. And man, dude, Jeremy Stephens is just not on a good run. He didn't look that good in the Miles Price fight either. So it'll be interesting to see how old mate Jeremy Stephens does in pure boxing. Maybe this will be a good change for his career at the end of his career, but I do have Jose Aldo to beat him by decision. I don't think Jose Aldo knocks out Jeremy Stephens. He couldn't knock out the 0-2 guy that he fought. It was longer than a week ago, dude. It was like 4 weeks ago, but I think Jose Aldo gets it done by decision in this matchup here. Literally no one picking Stephens, though. I think Stephens might have a chance, honestly. If he can try and brawl with Aldo. Aldo's going to be technical, though. Aldo looked really technical in his last fight, but he was fighting like an 0-2, 0-3 guy. But he still looked really good. He still looked really technical. Looked like he knew what he was doing. Jeremy Stephens, I haven't seen him box yet, so it'll be interesting to see. And then speaking of not seeing people box yet, we're talking about Anthony Pettis making his boxing debut against Roy Jones Jr. And I know that Anthony Pettis is making a lot of money for this fight because apparently Anthony Pettis decided to not re-sign with the PFL to take on this fight. And we know how much money Anthony Pettis was getting in the PFL. Anthony Pettis was getting something like $500K, maybe more than that actually. I think it was something like $350 to $500K. just to show up at the PFL. I remember seeing an article and it was absolutely ridiculous. So Jorge Masvidal's promotion is probably going to be giving him $1 million to show up and fight Roy Jones Jr. And you would assume that Roy Jones Jr. to fight at the age of 54 would be getting a big payday as well, and he'll probably be getting a percentage of that pay-per-view. And we look at the odds. You got Roy Jones Jr. paying $1.62, and Anthony Pettis is paying about $1.20. I don't know what that is in conversion. I would assume it would be like a minus, like around like minus 170, minus 180, and then plus 120 on those odds to convert it. But I do have Roy Jones Jr. in the fight. I mean, he fought Mike Tyson recently. They didn't look that good though, and we just saw 58-year-old Evander Holyfield fight recently as well, and we know how badly that went. And Roy Jones Jr. is 54. You know what I mean? He hasn't fought in pro boxing in 5 years, and this is pro boxing. And it's like, I know Roy Jones Jr. was incredible in his prime, but it's one of those things, man. Think about Roy Jones Jr. as well. I think this fight was listed to be at 200 pounds because Roy Jones Jr. used to fight at 200 pounds. And how much did he weigh against Mike Tyson? Because the thing is, Anthony Pettis isn't that big of a dude. You know, I know Roy Jones Jr. and him are about the similar height, but Anthony Pettis was fighting at 155 in PFL. And he weighed in at 210 pounds for that fight. There's Roy Jones Jr. Like, this fight could be listed at 200 pounds. You know what I mean? And if it is, I don't see Anthony Pettis weighing in at 200 pounds. You know what I mean? I think Roy Jones Jr. maybe just with his like boxing experience and boxing skill might be able to clinch up and lean on Anthony Pettis. Maybe land with some power shots. I know he's 54 years old, but he's going to be a big guy in there compared to Anthony Pettis. And for that reason, I do have Roy Jones Jr. And but man, like the MMA fan in me, the part of me that didn't see Roy Jones Jr. in his prime, is really just making me think Anthony Pettis, just because we saw Evander Holyfield when he was 58 years old look really bad against TRT Vitor. You know what I mean? And I've got Roy Jones Jr. He's 54 though, dude, and it's an 8-round fight. Like, can 54-year-old Roy Jones Jr. last 8 rounds? Oh, it's just kind of like one of those things. Like, the age is everything in this fight, you know. Anthony Pettis, you know, he's 36. He's definitely past his prime in MMA, but still so much younger, you know what I mean? And he's had so much less fights in general. Like, Roy Jones Jr. has had, 75 fights in his career at least. Just one of those things, man. I really wouldn't be that surprised if Anthony Pettis can pull it off. And there's no disrespect to Roy Jones Jr. It's just kind of one of those things where it's like, man, like, he's 54, you know what I mean? And it's an interesting one. But I'm watching this card. I'm looking forward to it. Is it a little bit of a mess? Is it quite top-heavy? Yeah, it's very top-heavy, but I'm looking forward to it, dude. I think there's going to be some fun scraps. I think Josh Burns versus Dylan Chiklis should be a fun one. Joe Riggs versus Marcus Perez will be fun too. I think it's going to be a lot of fun fights in this card that I really look forward to. So, yeah, it should be a fun fight. I will be live during it. I'll be live during this in PFL. It's going to be a great time. I'm really looking forward to it.